Greetings, Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
Welcome back, everyone, and great to have everyone here. The pushback on Mark Carney's video address to the nation has been robust and not unexpected. But as I've been observing all of this happen over the past day, especially the reaction to it, for me it has revealed much about what is really going on in the political landscape as Canada faces what is honestly an existential threat from our best friend, the United States of America. For me, a lot of this hits home in an unusual way. And I'll share a personal story. I hadn't even thought about this until just this moment, but I'm going to share something personal with you that will, I think, maybe help put all of this in perspective, and how a lot of it is disingenuous, and why so many of us are confused as we try to make sense of this information warfare game. We're being lied to. There is no question. We have been lied to by mainstream media. But we're being lied to by the independents, by people who are pretending to be our friends, people who are providing advice. We're being lied to by a lot of people. And tonight I'm going to show you some of the people doing it, explain kind of maybe why they're doing it, in an effort to arm you with, I guess, better media literacy. And hopefully we all come away from this tonight just a little bit wiser. Stay with me.
We are the Mavericks. Welcome to the Matrix, baby. Hope you like the view. We are the Mavericks. The world is watching. We are the Mavericks.
Man, I'll tell you, I have so many things to share with you tonight that I hope will put all of this in perspective. Let's first of all rewind a little bit to yesterday, a story that I didn't even make the lead story here, but maybe I should have, because what's going on with Mark Carney and his forward guidance video, his address to the nation, is hitting home not just in Canada, but also south of the border in the US of A. Mostly, though, with, interestingly, conservative right, MAGA influencers. Go to his video here. This is what Carney had to say. It's all about the trade threat, the tariffs, the threat to Canada's sovereignty.
I know from experience that outside forces can sometimes seem overwhelming. My previous jobs at the Bank of Canada and the Bank of England, it was part of my duties to make regular public reports on what we were doing to manage the economy. And I remember during the financial crisis, when there was a real risk of panic, I developed a practice called forward guidance. It was designed to assure people that however difficult the situation seemed on any given day, that we were acting, and importantly, that we would continue to act with overwhelming force against our problems until they were solved. And that's the spirit I'm talking to you about today. Security can't be achieved by ignoring the obvious or downplaying the very real threats that we Canadians face. I promise you, I will never sugarcoat our challenges. Instead, I will talk with you directly and regularly about our plan, why we're doing what we're doing, what's working, what isn't, and what we're going to do next. So here's the current situation.
Okay, so he says he's basically going to be honest with us. He's speaking to us, Canadians, knowing full well that the U.S. is listening. Keep in mind, all this is happening just ahead of the upcoming Canada, U.S., Mexico trade talks, right? With Trump saying, we don't need anything from Canada. We don't even care. Because he always starts from a position of extremism.
The world, as I said earlier, is more dangerous and divided. The U.S. has fundamentally changed its approach to trade, raising its tariffs to levels last seen during the Great Depression. Many of our former strengths, based on our close ties to America, have become our weaknesses, weaknesses that we must correct. Workers in our industries most affected by U.S. tariffs, in autos, in steel, in lumber, are under threat. Businesses are holding back investments, restrained by the pall of uncertainty that's hanging over all of us.
Look, these are just facts. There is uncertainty. It's creating a lag in the economy on both sides of the border, whether Trump cares to admit it or not. Inflationary pressures, as much as Trump is saying they have these new, trade investments, the reality is almost all of them are not really fully formed deals. He exaggerates by about double on how much real investment is coming into the country. Point is, uncertainty hinders investment because business people don't know what's going to happen.
The U.S. has changed, and we must respond. Canada Strong is our plan to build Canada by Canadians for Canadians. It will attract new investment so we can build more for ourselves, striking new partnerships abroad so we can sell into new markets. It's about taking back control of our security, our borders, and our future. There are some who say there's no need for a comprehensive plan. They believe we should wait it out in the hope that the United States will return to normal, that the good old days will come back. But hope isn't a plan, and nostalgia is not a strategy. And the days that young Canadians have known all their lives haven't been that good. Their lifetimes have been marked by a series of shocks and crises from abroad. The Iraq War, the global financial crisis, COVID, and now this. We have to take...
Let me ask you something. As I'm listening to this, Iraq, because of, that was the U.S., right? That came after Afghanistan. That was a U.S. decision, and we know there were no weapons of mass destruction. What else did he mention there? The 2008 financial crisis. What was that cost from? People cooking the system. He talks about it in his book. The housing crisis, the crash, because of the defaulted mortgages, liquidated into derivatives, trying to spread the risk on debt that was being presented to people who bought it as being risk-free with the illusion of a government backing. Basically, that was a U.S. that was also from the U.S. side. Everything he's mentioning there, the pandemic, oh my God. As I sit back and I watch all of this unfold, now what, 6 years after, almost 6 years, 5.5? Yeah, 5.5 years since the pandemic hit. Every time we start talking about these bad. Trump has somebody to blame. Blames this guy, blames that guy. Always somebody to throw under the bus. Blames everything on, the people around him. Everybody working for him is always afraid of getting fired. Never takes responsibility for anything that goes wrong, ever. The pandemic. Blamed China. Blamed the World Health Organization. Blame. It's all their fault. They mishandled it. Blamed the people around him. Blamed Fauci. Blamed Dr. Birx. Blamed Rand Paul. Blamed everybody. But never himself. And yet, who had all the power? He always had the power. Even if you look at what was going on with the World Health Organization. You look at the way that all went down and the impact that had on the entire world and especially on Canada, because we are on the border. We are connected geographically to the United States with the world's longest undefended border and massive trade, where we had to be pretty much in lockstep with a lot of the regulations that they adopted on the U.S. side. And it flows from there. Everything went to hell in a handbasket in 2020 after Trump was elected. Of course, partway through his presidency, the pandemic breaks out. Everything was kind of weird before that, too. So many protests in the streets, people fighting, buildings being burned when he was president. And, people look back, like during the whole thing, Me Too blamed our government down in the States. Who got blamed for lockdowns and mandates? States, not Trump. Trump always has Teflon on him. It's never his fault because he blames everyone around him. And yet, with the stroke of a pen, he could have put an end to a lot of the craziness. Blames the World Health Organization at the time, but yet here's the truth. The United States never gave up any of its sovereignty to the WHO. The United States was never obligated, never forced to follow any of the guidance put forward by the World Health Organization, ever. And in fact, often they didn't. In fact, Trump at times went against what the World Health Organization recommended, specifically in the earliest days, when the World Health Organization was saying, I don't think you necessarily need to be restricting travel from China. He imposed it anyway. So he didn't have to do what they told him. And he was his own man. He was his own president. Of course, they recently exited from the World Health Organization. He pulled out of it. But I'll tell you right now, upon further reflection, and I've commented on this like even just a few weeks ago, but now to a greater degree, it's about the goddamn money and the vaccines. That's what it was all about. That's what it's about right now, too. In a way that we're being told is like the opposite. It is about national sovereignty as well and national security from a perspective, but really, it's about the pharmaceutical companies and it is about money. The United States is the largest contributor, dollar-wise, to the World Health Organization. I think they pump in about $835 million a year, or they were, okay? That's a lot of cash. Well, too much. Costs too much money. China doesn't put in that much money, and they have more, they have a disproportionate amount of influence, he says, over the voting process. And all these other countries, they all get to vote. And the United States didn't control everything about the World Health Organization. So Trump says, we're out of here. Why? Because they have been developing global responses to the next pandemic through something called the Pandemic Treaty. I went and looked at it actually earlier today because I was talking to Ian and he mentioned that you guys were highlighting an interview that I did regarding that. And I went, yeah, I remember that. I received some information about it from time to time. I haven't reviewed everything, but this ties into tonight. It ties into what I said about 3 weeks ago. Blame the WHO, blame the WHO, blame Fauci, blame Birx, blame Canada, blame China, blame everybody, blame. And yet he comes back in for his second term, and then to score political points, as soon as, like it was first or second day, I don't remember which, he's signing the flurry of executive orders, which is like acting like a dictator, by the way, because that's just one guy making all these decisions and passing these they're not quite laws, but they have the same effect. Ruling with a Sharpie. And I remember he signed one regarding mandatory vaccines for kids going into school, and he just signed it. You can't do that anymore. Well, why? What took you so long, man? Because it's like over now. That for me, it was like that just was like huge wake-up call. Now I'm hearing all this rhetoric coming from him and all the MAGA sycophants who I'm really, just my head spins listening to some of the shit. The ignorance. Blaming China. Blaming Canada for, okay, he's going to China to talk trade in just a few weeks. The United States does massive amounts of business with China, but Canada's not allowed. You can't be doing any business with China. Oh my God, you might import some cars. Yeah, because you're forcing us. That's the game. Set it up so that you put maximum pressure on. You say, we're going to take all your auto plants. Screw you. We don't like what you're doing. Blah, blah, blah. We don't want to trade with you. Okay. Oh, by the way, you're not allowed to trade with them. You're not allowed to. They're off limits. If you do, we might have to invade you and take over your country and absorb you as the 51st state. That's what it comes down to. And it's not really just about that, man. It's about the politics. It's about the religion. It's about, they don't like Muslims. Yep. Oh, yeah. This is the same kind of prejudice and bigotry that we've seen all through U.S. history. I'm going to give you an example of that tonight, I think, if everything flows through and I have so much to share with you. This is a bunch of crap. What Carney did, so what? Oh, but some of these influencers, they're having a MAGA meltdown. What are you talking about, Rick? Oh, a whole bunch of them. Right off the top here. This one blew me away. See if I can find it for you here. Yeah, here's Steven Crowder. I used to from time to time watch him. I don't watch him very often. I thought pretty smart guy. Good presenter, has an entertaining show, uses humor to drive home points. Certainly on the MAGA side. And here he is carrying water for Donald Trump and coming after Carney in a really big way. And I'm thinking, like, why? And I'm listening to him with this response video, which is like extensive. Like, why do you give a shit if Canada doesn't matter to you? Because they care a lot. And it sounds like he's right, but he's not telling us the whole story.
The U.S. has fundamentally changed its approach to trade, raising its tariffs to levels last seen during the Great Depression. Many of our former strengths, based on our close ties to America, have become our weaknesses.
Carney doesn't even believe his own words. 91% at least of his investments are in American-based companies. He's the only Canadian prime minister to not have a Canadian degree. He went to Harvard. And half of his children work in the United States. Let me go to Canada. You know, I've been saying this for many years. Canada is not a real place. It's an unserious country.
What have I been telling you? What have I been telling you? The people trying to break up the country and annex Canada, the people behind it, have been saying, they've told me, the key to the whole thing is to convince us, to convince people, including Americans, that Canada isn't a real country. That's why they keep saying Canada doesn't have this that I hold in my hand, a constitution. Doesn't have a constitution. It's not even a real place. It's just a figment of your imagination, just like what the left did with Antifa. Antifa is just an idea. It doesn't really exist. It's a strange psychological thing, but if they can take away your pride in your country, if they make you think that what you have isn't worth fighting for, they'll take you over without ever firing a shot. Zero resistance, just cave in.
With unserious people in charge. Now back, maybe a few months ago, I said Canada was arguably becoming a national security threat. I stand before you today to say that Canada is inarguably a national security threat.
Right. We keep hearing that. Fentanyl one day, Chinese infiltration the next. Why? They're Are they going to swoop in and kidnap our prime minister next? They're ramping up the narrative. This is not like an independent influencer with his own opinion editorial. He is repeating a narrative. This is a marketing message. This is a psychological operation. These are talking points, and he is repeating them. In marketing, it's something called frequency. Repeat the message over and over and over again. That's why they keep showing you the same commercials on television and online repeatedly, because you have to show it multiple times in order for people to take action or to convince them to buy, to break them down. They're breaking down your will. They're screwing with your mind. And these exact talking points you will hear on other social media channels from influencers who have been given the same marching orders.
We've reached that point. You guys let me know. You comment below. And I know that we have quite a few Canadians who tune in. Welcome. You're the exception. Not all. You get all that stuff.
We're liberators.
Prime Minister Carney.
We're liberators. Thank you, Tucker Carlson. And I can go down the list, but they're going to liberate us. Oh, thank God.
His name is Carney. That should have tipped you off.
Right?
They aren't trustworthy people.
Small
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
This weekend, he declared, and it's not just his declaration, but it's what it actually means. When he says that the United States, Canada's reliance on the United States is their greatest weakness, what he's really doing is saying, hey, we really, really want to try and align ourselves with communist China. And here's the good thing about Carney.
Blame China. Blame China. Look, I've always had concerns about China, about communism, freedom, government overreach, always. But I know how politics is played too, and becoming wiser to it, especially in this new information ecosystem that we find ourselves in on the internet. And it has taken me some time to become acclimatized as an old dinosaur journalist, but the tactics are the same, just using a new medium. I've just had to kind of clue in. This is China. It's a scapegoat. The WHO is a scapegoat. The China is a scapegoat. That's what they're doing. Blame everyone but yourself. And This is just a punching bag. China's the go-to punching bag to generate consent.
Carney. The one saving grace with Carney is that he's a real life Ron Burgundy. He says the quiet part out loud, and so that's valuable to us. If you want to know what the left believes, look at people like Carney. He just has a complete lack of self-awareness. Here he is saying that Canada's relationship with the United States is now its core weakness.
So here's the current situation. The world, as I said earlier, is more dangerous and divided. The U.S. has fundamentally changed its approach to trade, raising its tariffs to levels last seen during the Great Depression. Many of our former strengths, based on our close ties to America, have become our weaknesses, weaknesses that we must correct. Workers in our industries most affected by U.S. tariffs, in autos, in steel, in lumber, are under threat. Businesses are holding back investments, restrained by the pall of uncertainty that's hanging over all of us. The U.S. has changed, and we must respond.
Just what he says, tariffs unseen since the Great Depression. Oh, you mean ours, as opposed to the Canadian tariffs on American goods. Go check the references. Up to 300% tariff on dairy products, 238% tariff on poultry products, 25% tariffs on automobiles. What you mean to say is...
Yeah. But the way he portrays it doesn't give you the whole picture, does it? It does, because if you've been watching this program, you understand that it's more complicated than that. It might as well be 1,000%. The point is, we don't want to trade with you on dairy. That's an industry. We don't really want to sell into your market, and we don't want you selling into our market because our government has decided that food sovereignty, food security is a major issue, and they want a stable agriculture system to protecting the farmers. You can either agree with it or disagree with it, but the point is that's a policy decision made by our government. I would be of a different mind if Canada were if we were dumping milk into the U.S. market tariff-free going that way, and then we imposed 300% tariffs coming back this way, then I would say, yeah, that's not fair. We get to sell to you, but we won't let you sell to us. No, on the dairy file, we're not really interested in dumping. The reason we dump it down the drain, the surplus, is because we don't sell it to the United States. We could at a real discount, but we don't. It's kind of like somebody showing up at your house saying, I want to buy your car. Or saying, and I want you to buy mine. And you're like, I don't want to sell my car. No, you have to. I don't want to. And I want you to buy my car. I want you to buy 10 cars. I don't want to buy any. No, we want to sell it to you, but we don't want any. Well, then you can't sell any cars to us. That's fine. We don't want to, but you have to. What's the matter with you? That's what that argument is. See, we do sell some milk to this dairy products, but it's not very much. And coming back the other way, we don't want it. There are a bunch of reasons why too. It isn't just about money. It's about, and it isn't even just about food security. It's about hormones. And whether you're pumping your cows full of hormones, growth hormones, to produce milk. It's the same thing with poultry. We have certain standards here on things like antibiotics that we want to maintain in order to make sure that people get healthy food. In a lot of cases, Canadian standards are different. And we protect that. But if you open up your market and you're trading back and forth, now suddenly you are giving up a lot of your sovereignty in order to trade, because you have to have your products in compliance, and you have to be in lockstep. Your products have to match the same standards as their products so you can trade. And if they don't, then you can't trade, and then you can't sell your stuff into that market. So it's more complicated than that. But that's a simplified argument put forward to get an emotional response, but you're not thinking when you are acting out of fear or emotion. And that is what Mr. Crowder is doing here. He is repeating a narrative. He's been given talking points, and he is hammering home on it. This is a half-hour long video. And I've heard all of these points before. And he doesn't care. Except he does. They care a lot. Why? Oh, Canada wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the United States. Oh, Canada's ripping us off like the entire world. And yet, really, if you stand back and look at this shit, excuse my language, it doesn't even hold water. Largest economy in the world since World War II. Nobody's profited more than the United States because they can print money at will, pretty much, with no ramifications. Because they have the world reserve currency and nuclear bombs to back it up. It isn't just the oil, folks. It's the nukes. Don't mess with Godzilla, lest he stomp on your head, especially if you're right next door. But Carney, he's standing up to him. He's now MAGA enemy number one. It's okay, though. Hang in there. See, the whole thing is this whole argument that, oh, we have to. See, this is a war on liberalism. And when I say liberalism, I think most of the people who are losing their minds, and I'll get messages after this program from idiots who will be saying, oh, you're a liberal lover. You're goddamn right. I believe in liberal democracy. Always have. What does liberal mean? It means freaking freedom. Go look up your history. Liberal. Not like big L liberal party liberal. Liberal. Freedom. Liberal democracy means liberalism, freedom with democracy. You get to vote. You get a stake in what happens. Liberalism doesn't necessarily mean socialism. It means freedom, though. Rule of law, freedom of speech, freedom of expression, all of those things, all of those freedoms encompassed in the whole concept of classical liberalism. I heard another influencer today. Who's the guy? It doesn't matter, saying that MAGA and Trump are the ones really fighting to protect classic liberal values. I was like, what the hell are you talking about? Because they still don't get it. I've been saying for a while, Donald Trump is not a conservative. He is not. He's a socialist. He's just a different kind of socialist than Mr. Mamdani, the new mayor of New York. Why are we going there? Because he just gave an interview to NPR talking about exactly this. Now, Mamdani, you remember that meeting in the White House when Mamdani went to see him? He met with Trump, and he called him a fascist. And Trump was like, it's okay. It's better if we're just honest about it. Trump is not trying to hide it. He is an economic fascist. Maybe more than that. I'd say more than that. He's an authoritarian. He's all about control in the economy. And Mamdani is, these two guys get along. They don't agree with each other, but they get along. Why don't they agree with each other? Because they're just two different kinds of socialists. Mamdani is closer to like the far left of the socialism scale. Trump, he's not really a fascist. He's a communo-fascist. He's a populist. But there are different shades of populism as well. This is something the United States hasn't quite seen before. This version, this ideology, nobody's really seen this before. That's why everyone is having so much difficulty recognizing or figuring out what the hell is going on. But Mamdani's kind of got it pinned.
To repave more than 1,000 miles of roadway. We can do all of these things where we've been told in the past you could only do one.
Has the war in Iran had an outsized impact specifically on the economy of this city?
Yes, the war in Iran has had an impact on the economy of this country. And even more than the economy, it's had an impact on the people of this city and across this country. At the core of any war is a dehumanization that takes place. And that dehumanization is not limited to any battlefield. It extends into the lives of people across this country. And I spoke to a young Muslim woman who I had called after seeing the news that she had been thrown to the ground at a subway stop. She told me that the first thing her attacker said to her before he attacked her was, "I wonder how many Iranians we killed today." That is what we are allowing to take hold in our politics. And it is critically important for all of us to speak up, not just from a position of politics, but frankly, even just from a position of morals.
Indeed. I don't agree with Zoran Mamdani's economic policies. A lot of them, okay? I don't think that the city of New York has any business being in the business of running grocery stores. There are other ways to do it, and I don't agree with it. Is it evil? No. Do I understand what he's doing? Yes. I salute the attempt to bring lower prices to the masses and make food affordable, which is a necessity of life. But I don't think it's the right approach. I just disagree with it. But I do agree with him on this. Because it's the bigotry, it's the prejudice that is being used, exploited to manipulate people, to divide people, to get everybody angry, to get people in the streets and fighting. Identifying groups of people that you can blame. We've seen this before. We should learn from our history, shouldn't we? But we don't. We don't. Just ask George Takei, Sulu, from Star Trek. What? Yeah. You know, he's become something of a political activist, smeared by MAGA, by people on the right over the years. The right. They're not on the right, folks. They're over with the, this whole movement has shifted. You know, Trump 1.0, I think it was kind of more there. This is full on over there. They're kindred, they're like their neighbors is what they are now. The communists and this MAGA organization. Just two different kinds of socialism. George Takei has seen it before. George Takei, Sulu from Star Trek, the original series. Japanese. His family. Sent to a concentration camp inside America during World War II. As a child, they came in at gunpoint. They took him and his family away. He talks about it today. And he's sounding the alarm on Trump, saying that he's a menace to the world. Because this is history repeating itself.
And they were marching for their freedom and just position.
He's talking about, you know, becoming something of a peace activist after his Star Trek days, during the original series, marching in the streets during the civil rights movement of the 60s and 70s.
As citizens of the United States. And we had, internationally, a war going on in Vietnam. And that was tearing this country about as well. I was part of the peace movement Jane Fonda was famous for being a voice for peace in Vietnam at that time, and Jane worked together with me in organizing the Asian American community to express our. So we had all these political issues churning in our country, not unlike when we were in prison, but they weren't prison. Part of the turmoil was against us during the Second World War. And here we are again, both internationally and domestically in turmoil. We keep repeating the same thing because we don't learn the lessons of history. And that's why I've been going all over the country making speeches like Jane and writing books on the imprisonment of innocent people simply on the basis of race and punished severely. I mean, I was a child and it was all terrorizing and confusing, but for my parents, it was absolutely devastating to have everything taken away and being looked at as a hated enemy.
So you could have.
Yeah. That's over on Times News, if you want to go looking for that. It's really disturbing. Trump has been using language like referring to Iranians, Muslims as animals. He said that about a week ago. And it's not the first time he's used language like that. When you hear politicians, and I've seen even politicians over here in the MAGA sphere and others referring to immigrants as parasites, certain immigrants with certain colors of skin and certain religious beliefs as vermin and parasites. Parasites. That is dehumanization. That is a deliberate attempt to make you think of other people as less than human, to then make you not care when people in jackboots show up, drag them out of their homes, throw them into prisons without due process, ship them out of the country, or maybe do even worse things. Canada's not off the hook either. We did similar kinds of things to people of Japanese descent, Canadian citizens during World War II. I did a piece on that. Went out to community of Dresden, where many of them were taken and ended up working in farmers' fields for quite some time and became productive members of the community over time. But here, after they were given back their freedom. But Stephen Crowder, as part of his presentation, criticized Canada throughout that thing, saying that if we align ourselves in Canada, then we really have no moral leg to stand on because of China's human rights violations. But with all the lying that's been going on, especially coming out of the MAGA camp, and every other word coming out of Trump's mouth is obviously a lie, since this war is, how long have we been at it now? 7 weeks? 8 weeks? It was supposed to be over in 3 or 4. Now we're about double that. He's lie. China says that a lot of the shit that's coming out of the MAGA sphere is a lie. I'm beginning to think that, maybe a lot of it isn't quite true. Now, I'm still not going to sit here and give China a pass because I know they've done some not very nice things over there too. And they can be a national security threat. Every country. But are they harvesting the organs of children and committing all of the atrocities they're actually accused of? I'm not so sure. Not saying yes, not saying no. I'm saying I'm really doubting more and more every day everything that comes out of the president's mouth and the mouths of those who lick his boots and threaten my country. Because I'm seeing it firsthand. Now I'm living it. That's why I'm waking up. Because I never really realized what was going on in other countries until it started happening right here to us. Really beginning back in 2020, when a certain person was president, who had become president just before that. A certain person who blames everything on everybody else. A certain person who was president during the pandemic, who fast-tracked vaccines to get them to market as quickly as possible. A certain person, a certain president, a President Trump, who blamed everybody, never took responsibility for anything, could have prevented all the violations of freedoms on the U.S. side. And if he had done that, I'm certain Canada would have been in lockstep. But he didn't. He did not. Blamed the World Health Organization, even though he went against their guidance on travel restrictions for China right out of the gate, proving that the United States had full sovereignty. Didn't have to do what the WHO said. And I know everybody blames. See, it's the narrative that was spun up. Who's to blame? Where can we direct people's anger? Direct it at China. The virus came from the Wuhan lab, right? Well, first people are like, we don't know, la, la, la. Well, now, because Trump's in power again, official government position is it came from that lab. And you can go to the government websites where it now has the veil of credibility because it's coming from the government, because now he's in charge. And well, now if they're in charge, then that's what we have to believe. Before we had to believe other stuff, but now we're going to believe these guys because they're in charge. So who do you actually believe? I'm not sure, but I do know this. Whatever Trump did because he did it, because he wanted to, because he had the authority to do it, the power, because he was the president of the United States, the most powerful country in the entire world. He's the most powerful man in the world. Oh, but it's the WHO, Rick. It's the WHO. Oh, no, it's the states. Yeah, see, what he did is he passed the buck. Well, I want you to have your freedom. Make sure you get your vax. And as for the lockdowns, well, that's up to the states. The states, I can't do anything about it. They have to leave it to them. Oh, and the WHO, yeah, they've mishandled this whole thing. We need to get out of the WHO. The WHO never, ever recommended full-scale national lockdowns. Never did. I bet you didn't know that. I bet you were thinking the opposite. I was just left with the impression from a lot of the social media influencers, the media, who were lying to us, including me. But I went and I've been looking it up. It's not true. I started actually looking at this several weeks ago. This is why I started to kind of talk about it more, because I was like, you know what? Like, that's right. And when you start to think about this, Trump didn't have to follow any of the advice from the World Health Organization. None of it. Yes, they did, Rick. No, they didn't. Here's the quote. Dr. David Nabarro, October 8th, 2020. We in the World Health Organization do not advocate lockdowns as the primary means of control of this virus. The only time we believe a lockdown is justified is to buy you time to reorganize, regroup, rebalance your resources, protect your health workers who are exhausted. But by and large, we'd rather not do it. Stop using lockdown as your primary control method. What did Trump do? Nothing. He just let the states do what they were going to do. Canada was more stringent overall. It depended on which state you were looking at. Some were much freer and open, and others were less so. Here's the official WHO guidance document. Quote from it. Physical distancing measures and movement restrictions, often referred to as shutdowns and lockdowns, can slow COVID-19 transmission. However, these measures are blunt tools with considerable social and economic costs. For countries that have introduced widespread physical distancing measures and population-level movement restrictions, there is an urgent need to plan for a phased transition away from such restrictions. It goes on. And they didn't force anybody to do anything because the United States is a sovereign nation state, most powerful country in the world. None of these things were binding. They were recommendations. It was guidance. No country was obligated to do any of it. Not a thing. Nothing. So why are they pulling? Why did he pull out? What really is the big deal? I'll tell you, money and control. It is, in a way, a national security issue for the United States to remain part of the World Health Organization. And if they were to sign on to this upcoming, well, it's actually been a pandemic treaty that has been in the works now for about 4 years. Now, I interviewed James Roguski a couple of times on the program. Smart guy. I went back because I was told about it earlier today by email and in a phone call with somebody else too, saying that you guys had been looking at it last night. Oh, okay. Then I thought, yeah, I'm going to go back and look at that interview. So I did. And James, let me tell you, he's anti-WHO. Okay. And he has valid concerns, and it depends on how you look at it. And that's all fine. But he has been an advocate for the United States exiting the World Health Organization. But in the interview, he, again, was not really sharing all sides of the story because he just brings his own narrow perspective on it. But when you step back from what Trump has done, why would he do it? Oh, well, because they're spending too much money on the WHO. We shouldn't put $830 million a year into it. Well, did you know that the United States, in order to, they're now working on bilateral agreements with all the different countries, which is 100 and some countries involved, so that they can set up their own monitoring systems to make sure that they keep tabs on any viruses or anything out there that might result in another pandemic or some sort of health issue that might represent a national security threat to the USA. To replace the warning systems and come up with their own systems bilaterally with each country individually, they're going to have to spend upwards, maybe even more than 3 times that. 3 times. Why? Why would they do it then? Control? Because they don't want to sign on to this treaty because it's about the fair distribution of medications and vaccines. So from Trump's perspective, the United States is the richest country. They have the most money. So if there's another pandemic, the United States gets to hoard all the vaccines. And in fact, he took that approach during the pandemic. I know, you're like, wait a minute, Trump, it's not his fault. He got duped. Did he? Now, you can have your view on the vaccine, but I'll tell you right now, he was like, Americans get jabbed first, and they get it free. He made sure Americans got the jabberoonie first and got it free. He wanted it in the worst way. And everything I'm telling you, you can verify. You can go look all this stuff up. You check it. Some people think that's good. Other people are like, he's trying to kill us all, right? Well, you can have a view one way or the other, but that's what he was doing. Over at the World Health Organization, they're right now, they're trying to get everybody to sign a contract to make sure that everybody has access to any kind of vaccines or medications that might be needed in the future for future outbreaks of illnesses and maybe even a pandemic, again, in the future. And that means that it's a prearranged contract. If something happens, the pharmaceutical companies have to supply each of these countries with a certain amount, and they have an agreement on how things are distributed globally based on need, where it will do the most good to prevent the spread of the illnesses globally, which can be a good thing for all countries because then it might prevent the spread from one country to another to another. If you're all working together and you have an information network that is tied together, I can see how coordination can be a very good thing. But if you have a contract that is binding legally, internationally, then the producer of the vaccine or the medication or even whoever holds the most of it at any given time, they have to share. And if the World Health Organization agreement stipulates, and if at the time the information coming back says we have a big outbreak in these countries, there's nothing going on over here, we need to treat this over here as quickly as possible. If you're the United States and you want to serve your people first, then you say, no, we're not sending any over there. They can all die. You know how when Trump came down the escalator and then got elected, and people like Bill Maher and some others said that, I think it was him, he said, in a way, he wasn't the only one, but they said, this was Trump's big FU to the world and to the establishment, to the elite or whatever. It was his big F. Pulling out of the WHO is Trump's big FU. It's like, F you. We don't have to do anything. This is ours. And then he's going to make sure that his people are taken care of first, and it's America first, and screw the rest of the world. He doesn't care. And that's fine. Every country can do that, but that just shows that, again, he doesn't have to do anything the WHO wants. And so he's not. So stop with the blaming. And with regard to, the virus coming out of the Wuhan lab, he says that's what it is. Now he's got control of the government. That's the narrative. That's what they're pumping into everybody's heads. But China denies it to this day. And the World Health Organization also, somewhat more neutral, kind of, And there's, what their position on it is right now? They don't know. But Trump is, no, it's China, China, China. And that's as bad as Russia, 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 only it's worse because there's actually still kind of like some real trails there where he has relationships with China, or rather with Russia. No, it's China, China, China. It's always the scapegoat. What's the truth? Don't know. Will we ever know? Probably not. Well, except some people know because they think they know because they've been told what to know. And in reality, I don't think we know. I do know this, whether it was planned or whether it was just used opportunistically, it was used to make all of this stuff that's been going on ever since happen. That much is very clear. Because that's when all the craziness started. It's the moment that guy came down the escalator. And I thought, well, that's pretty cool. I was with it. I was like, this is different. And I was tired of all the craziness from the extreme progressives, the cancel culture, the whole thing. I got tired of that too, man. It was too much. I've been living with a lot of that my whole life too, just like everybody else. I paid a price for that in my career. So don't tell me that, I don't understand, or that I'm a liberal lover. Oh, no, I understand this. I get it on both sides. I don't like any of it. But I really don't like this. Because this is getting violent. This is resulting in people's rights being stripped away. Now, people are like, well, you live in a communist country and you don't have any rights and it's not a real place. And look at what happened to Jeff Evely. And he was, he went for a walk in the woods and got a big fine of $200,000, whatever the amount of money was. Well, I got news for you. Today, judge ruled in Jeff Evely's favor. Yeah, see, it proves it. Yeah, it proves that we live in a free country where you can push back and win. And he did it. Congratulations, Jeff Evely. Nova Scotia judge ruled today. Just because you live in a free country doesn't mean that your government's always going to do the right thing. Doesn't mean that they're not going to. It doesn't mean that you're some guy you elect. Oh, he's the elite. No, he's not. He's a bum from down the street who used to work as a farmer or a cop or a lawyer, commonly, who became a politician. You voted for him. He probably lives in your community somewhere, and maybe he's at the head of the whole thing. He's the premier, whatever. But it doesn't mean they're going to make the right decision every time just because you live in a free liberal democracy. Sometimes they screw up and they go too far. Yeah, they violate rights. That's what the courts are for. That's what Jeff Evely did. He fought back and he won today. And that's also what happens in a liberal democracy. Proving that actually the system can work. Now, we were restricted from walking in the woods for a while out in Nova Scotia. Well, all that went down. But now they can't do that, and there's a legal precedent, and that'll be on the books, and that will help prevent it from ever happening again. And why? Because Jeff Evely took those steps literally into the woods and forward for our country. Because we're not a communist dictatorship. Not here, not in Nova Scotia. We've had our dark days, as you heard from George Takei, because that kind of stuff also went on in Canada to a lesser extent. In the United States, a lot of darkness in their history and a lot of blood and a lot of slavery. They still talk about it today. In fact, Crowder was talking about exactly that over the past few days on his program, Slavery Again. Why is that coming up? Because it's still in the DNA of the nation. The bigotry, the racism. As a Canadian, I can't quite relate to it, but I've seen it. I've been down, especially in the southern U.S. I've seen it. And there's some up here, and it's become more pronounced, and it's ugly and kind of disgusting, which is going to bring me to Kate Smith again later in the program. And it's about respect. And that's what Mark Carney also talks about in his book, Values, where largely the book looks at everything through a lens of economics. But values, he talks about affixing value to everything as a kind of a concept, right, in our current state. And what he's also saying is that what defines Canada as a sovereign nation state, as a country, is not the color of people's skin. It's about what's in here. What we believe in as people, as Canadians, as citizens, what we hold dear, what our system is. The rule of law, democracy, giving people a say, a stake, having respect for people, our fellow Canadians, helping each other out when we need to be helped, coming together working together, working with other countries, not giving up our sovereignty, working with other countries to honor theirs, respect it, and have ours respected as well. Not to control other countries, but to do things that are mutually beneficial, including engaging in different kinds of trade through which we conduct transactions and we both prosper, which is the opposite of what Donald Trump does. For him, it's all a zero-sum game. It's an issue of respect heading into negotiations. Today, Canada's former ambassador to the United Nations, Bob Rae, on CPAC, talking about just that. Well, the Americans and the MAGA bootlicking influencers are out there hammering Canada and hammering Carney. Bob Rae, because they say that he's attacking the United States. He's not. Like it's a shot across the bow. It is kind of a shot back, but it's defensive. And I'll tell you, when you listen to it, it was entirely respectful. No matter how they spin it, and they are, and so a lot of people will just in their heads believe it to be so. No, what Carney did with his address, it was respectful, but it was forceful. He stood his ground. He's defending the country.
Doing that, I don't find what he said disrespectful in the least. I think it's simply a description. Somebody puts a 50% tariff on some of our key industries. Somebody makes investment in our auto sector much more difficult because of the other policies that the government of the United States is following. I don't think it's improper or inappropriate for a prime minister to draw attention to these things, but in the context of a much longer and ongoing dialogue. And of course, every Canadian politician and public figure knows that whatever you say, whether it's on social media or in question period in the House of Commons or in any forum, is going to be listened to and watched by the President of the United States and his team, the American public, the American media, and also the global media, which is why one of the reasons why I think recent polling, global polling, suggests that the Prime Minister's voice is one of the most respected voices around the world, which is not a bad thing, I would argue, when we look at what our global influence is and needs to be.
Yeah, global influence, and we certainly have seen reflections.
It's the same thing that happened to Doug Ford when he ran the video with the audio of Ronald Reagan, which was accurate, not taken out of context. Reagan coming out calling for free trade. He was an advocate for free trade, used tariffs, yes, but very sparingly and very reluctantly. And specifically, there were a couple of incidents. But he was a free trader. Donald Trump is not. Donald Trump is using, see, if all he was doing was targeting Canada, then I might even there say, well, maybe Stephen Crowder has a point, and all these other people, these other critics who are saying, look at Canada's dairy. They always go for the dairy industry example because it's about the only one they have. And the 25% tariff on autos is more recent because it's a response to what's going on with the U.S. tariffs on Canada. Uninformed, ignorant, or an agent of chaos. Pierre Poilievre, conservative leader, given time on CTV today, I understand, to provide a rebuttal to Mark Carney's address to the nation. I've got it here. We're going to run it right now. And this also proves that we live in a free liberal democracy because we have an official opposition with another point of view, and they're allowed to have a voice. Freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and we need a good, strong opposition on the conservative side. And here it is.
Yesterday, the Prime Minister released yet another video that repeated the same speech that he's been giving for the last year about the U.S. He recycled the same promises and reused the same old lines, this time with a little more dramatic flair. There was even a nude figurine on display. But it was all strangely timed for the day before Statistics Canada inflation data would show that in March, we again had the worst food price inflation in the G7. Now, other G7 countries face the same global problems of tariffs and wars, but none are seeing the rise at the grocery stores Liberals have imposed here at home. Now, it's not surprising that the Prime Minister wants to distract from his costly failures by pushing fear and re-upping his rhetoric yesterday. But let's compare that rhetoric to the reality. He promised to double home building, but his own housing agency now expects home building to fall 18%. He promised to build big projects, but what's really getting built? His new major projects office has approved not one single new major project, not one major pipeline, not one major development, nothing. He has not removed a single Trudeau-era anti-development law, but he has stacked new laws on top of old ones. He's not removed a single government agency or bureaucracy, but he instead has created 12 new ones. And speaking of the pipeline to the Pacific, that great symbol of our national energy sovereignty, after a year of Mark Carney's promise to do unprecedented speeds, the project has no route, no permit, no builder, no timeline to start building, and no end date to complete it. Enbridge, the only company capable of building it, says plainly that the Liberal laws and taxes that Mr. Carney has kept in place make it impossible to produce enough oil to fill a new pipeline. It's all an illusion. He also promised to negotiate a win with the U.S. by July 2025. Almost a year later, he has squandered Canada's leverage, and we now pay twice the tariffs on far more goods than when Mr. Carney became Prime Minister. Well, I have announced a detailed plan to build our leverage to fight for tariff-free trade. A year after he became Prime Minister, no one has any idea of Mr. Carney's plan to save the over 2 million Canadian jobs that rely on trade with the U.S. These workers cannot eat speeches or videos or announcements. Now, he claims he'll replace the U.S. with other countries, so let me ask you this. How many new trade deals with other countries do you think he has negotiated in his year in office? 0. The last trade deal from this Liberal government was with Indonesia, negotiated by Justin Trudeau. It will boost annual exports with that country by only enough to replace just 5 hours of exports to the U.S. Other than that, there have been a dozen non-binding, unenforceable memorandums that amount to little more than press releases. He repeated promises in his video for more investment. But since he took office, investment in industrial equipment and machinery has fallen nearly 15%. And that is after the Liberal decade saw the net exit of $1 trillion of investment. Twice as much investment has left Canada than returned in the last decade, according to an RBC report released last week. And twice as many Canadians are opening businesses outside of Canada as they are here at home. The Canadian Federation of Independent Business says we are in an entrepreneurial drought and that economic foundations are crumbling. Meanwhile, Mr. Carney has doubled the deficit, increased federal spending 7% above what Justin Trudeau spent in his final year, and stacked $90 billion of net new spending on top of what his predecessor had budgeted for the next 5 years. Outside of COVID, the Carney Liberals are now running the largest deficit in Canada's history and the highest level of spending as a share of our national income since 1996. There has been no tax reform in the last year, unless you count the renaming of the carbon tax as the clean fuel standard. The rhetoric simply does not match the results. Illusions are not reality. Lofty summit speeches, meaningless MOUs, and symbolic signing ceremonies do not pay your mortgage, gas your tank, or fill your grocery cart here at home. We cannot control what the U.S. does, to be fair, but we can control what we do to make Canada affordable and autonomous here at home. Our Conservative plan for affordable energy will unlock our potential. We will eliminate all carbon taxes, hidden and visible. We would end all gas and diesel taxes for the rest of the year. We would permit rapid oil and gas and electricity projects to boost our dollar and its purchasing power. We would cancel EV rebates and mandates that largely subsidize foreign automobiles, and instead, let's take the sales tax off vehicles made here in Canada. We must unblock the most tariff-proof industry of all, home building, by cutting red tape and taxes on construction. That will create tariff-proof jobs and restore home ownership to our youth. The federal government should also grant 6-month approval times, repeal anti-development laws like C-69 and 48, and adopt a one project, one approval rule. As did Prime Minister Harper during the global financial crisis, 23,500 projects went from concept to completion in just over 2 years with no environmental or public safety problems. We can do that again. We should use the special powers under Bill C-5 to rapidly permit new pipelines, including a pipeline to the Pacific carrying over $30 billion of oil overseas. $30 billion is more than the total exports to China, for context. These measures will be bundled together as part of what we call the Canadian Sovereignty Act. When we unlock our resources, we must maximize their negotiating leverage. Guaranteed access to critical minerals is about more than economics. It's about power and security. Canada produces 10 of 12 NATO defense critical minerals. We also have one of the largest supplies of energy beneath our feet. No modern economy or military functions without secure energy. And that's why I believe, and I have proposed, that Canada should establish a strategic energy and mineral reserve, stored domestically, under Canadian control, and available to secure the country and our allies during war, crisis, or supply disruption. The United States wants access to all these minerals and energy. Well, we should use those resources as leverage to get what we want: tariff-free trade, including for our aluminum, steel, lumber, and autos. We do not need more costly illusions for Mr. Carney. We need real-world results at your grocery store, your gas pump, and in your bank account. We must be affordable at home, safe at home, and strong at home so that we can have unbreakable leverage abroad. Yesterday,
Well, there's that perspective. So I'll leave that with you. I may comment more on that another night, but I don't want to get too far over there. A few things that resonate with me and a few things that make me say maybe that's not quite going to be possible. But, like, how are you supposed to use your oil as leverage with the United States when you have a province that controls so much of the oil saying, you don't touch our oil and we're never going to turn the taps off to the U.S. We're just going to give it to them regardless. And we already sell it to them at a discount because they have only one customer. It's easy to say these things, but difficult to deal with the reality of the politics in Canada on the other side of that. So maybe he would have a better relationship with Alberta. I suspect it probably would be better, but I don't think they're going to change their position on any of that, given the current set of circumstances. And more than that, why is Poilievre in the position he's in? Because, while people are saying, I think that Carney is part of the whole plot to be the evil cabal to destroy everything because Trump supported him and said he wanted Carney to win. I pointed out the other night that the reason Donald Trump said it was going to be easier for him to do what he wanted to do, he said it will just be easier if we have the Liberals elected, is because now he has a villain that he can point a finger at, somebody wearing a great big giant L that he can portray as an evil lefty. And he can sell that to people. If you've got the Conservatives in office, how does he say he's going to go to war with liberalism in Canada where you have a Conservative government? It's more difficult because of the branding. That's all. Nevertheless, he wouldn't take his eye off the prize. That's for sure. So it plays out. It continues to play out. And as we get into elections, you say those of you who want to become part of the 51st state, and that's what all of this is about, Why? Oh, it's so much better. Is it? Oh, yeah, they have more democracy down there. Do they? Because their laws let big, really rich people pump a lot of money into the politics, you know. And a lot of what's going on down there, we were talking, George Takei talking about, you know, the what happened to him and his family being taken to a camp in World War II. Well, there's a whole layer to what's going on within the MAGA sphere and this assault on Canadian sovereignty that has echoes from the, going back to like the 1800s. Have you ever heard of the American Party or the Know Nothing Party, born of a secret society? You think Mark Carney's part of a giant evil cabal? I suppose anything's possible, but do you not know the history of the Order of the Star-Spangled Banner? Founded in 1849 in the United States. It was really one of the first or one of the original third-party options in the U.S. Became quite popular. Began as a small oath-bound fraternity. Had elaborate initiation rituals, passwords, hand signs. They had a requirement for members to be of Protestant, Anglo-Saxon lineage. They had to be pure native stock. No Catholics allowed. No recent immigrants allowed. They didn't like immigrants too much. And I'm not talking about the kind of immigrants from India. I mean, you go back in history, people have been fighting over things like religion, immigration for a long time. It's not just about skin color, man. Back then, this group, they were upset about the rising influence of Irish and German Catholic immigration. They saw all of this as a threat to American Republican values and Protestant culture. Isn't that interesting? What have we seen Trump doing of late? As I said, he's dressing up in AI costumes and posting pictures of himself as Jesus and even as the Pope. Also, he's going to be participating in, is it today or tomorrow? I think it was today. He was reading the Bible in the Oval Office, I believe, as part of a Bible marathon reading. They're integrating the church and the state. What did I say a couple of nights ago? This is interesting. This was just a prediction, just something like a sense that I had. The president might be establishing, I said, they'll probably call it the Church of America. Well, this Order of the Star-Spangled Banner was it gave birth to the American Party. The American Party. And a lot of it was all about religion. It was basically a Christian nationalist group, but not Catholic. Because I told you before, they'll get you fighting about anything, especially religion. Immigration, skin color, sexual orientation, you name it. They'll have us fighting about it. That's what's going on. Slavery. Bigotry. They called it the Know Nothing Party. That was the nickname because if you belonged to this party in the earliest days, if anybody asked you about it, you were supposed to say, I don't know anything about it. I know nothing about it. Because it was secret, because they didn't want... they didn't want to get taken down, taken out. They didn't want anybody to know. It's interesting to look at that because as I kind of watch what's happened through the progression of MAGA, Trump coming down the escalator, first he's a Democrat. Then he becomes a Republican. Or actually, first he was an independent. He was a Democrat. Then he was like an independent. Didn't actually run. Then comes into the Republican Party and takes it over and transforms it. Now MAGA controls the Republican Party because it's not the Republican Party of old, which is why you have all these former conservatives. They didn't leave the party left them. Still Republican in name, but really it's a populist party now. It is totally different. You can't tell me it isn't. It is, because I see so many of the, people who, like David Frum, who used to be, integrated into the government, now just working at the Atlantic. And he's a liberal, but no, he was conservative. Still comments online. Well respected, smart man. Conservative that you'll call a liberal today. People were saying just a few years ago that if John F. Kennedy were alive today, he wouldn't be a Democrat. He'd be a Republican, probably a conservative. Whatever that means. He might actually be. I don't think so. He would stand in opposition, I think, to what Trump is doing pretty sternly, because he would be against all of these civil rights violations, and that also is a telltale sign. But all this is a replay, just as George Takei said. It's a replay of what we went through so many years ago during the 1940s. The American Party. Well, that reminds me. Let's rewind it just a little bit, shall we? How long ago was this? What did Elon Musk do when he was feuding with Donald Trump? This was 9 months ago. Here's the report from NBC. What was Elon Musk up to? He was establishing a new party. What was it called? Right, the American Party.
Tonight, on the heels of President Trump signing his massive domestic policy bill into law, his former close ally, Elon Musk, announcing the formation of a new political party. Musk, the world's richest person, taking to his social media site X to say, "We live in a one-party system, not a democracy. Today, the America Party is formed to give you back your freedom." Musk, who was President Trump's top campaign donor, has been feuding with the president over the so-called One Big Beautiful Bill, which the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office says will add more than $3 trillion to the national debt over the next 10 years. Musk has referred to the legislation as a debt slavery bill and had been teasing a new political party for days. The Tesla CEO did not respond to questions from NBC News seeking clarity about today's announcement.
Yeah, rich people don't like taxes. That's especially when you have a lot of money. And yeah, that's why. That's historically what it comes down to. When you're telling people, if all you're going for is just straight up freedom with no fairness, freedom to do what? To take everything over if I want to. No regulations. Let me at them. You don't stand a chance, folks, when you're up against someone like Elon Musk. If you want to enter any industry that he's involved with, he just has unlimited resources now. He has so much money that you don't stand a chance. You'll never get started. If you compete with him, you can't. That's why you need fairness in the system, and they don't want the fairness. He exits the system, starts his own party, but it's the American Party. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? Well, all these people are like, I don't think that thing was the Nazi salute. Is he a Nazi? I hate to use that term, but is he a technocrat? Maybe on the fascist side, maybe more, because when I say that, I mean economically. Yeah, 100%. Because he doesn't want high taxes. He wants no regulations. Leave him alone. He's got all the money now. Don't touch my money. Don't touch my $1 trillion. Leave me alone. No, we're coming for it. Because the people on the socialist side, they want to take it. They want to eat him because he's rich. Don't eat me. And how do you prevent being eaten? You say no to regulations, because that's how they get you. Is they get power and then they come after you with regulations and taxes. Here's a little history on the secret society that gave birth to the Order of the Star-Spangled Banner and the American Party back in the 1800s. Montpellier's secret society, the Order of the Star-Spangled Banner. Despite its lofty-sounding title, the Order of the Star-Spangled Banner, this is from TimesArgus.com, was part of a national movement to intimidate immigrants, discourage Catholicism, and preserve Anglo-Saxon Protestants as the rightful rulers of the United States. In 1854, a Montpellier chapter of the National Organization was formed, enlisting the capital city's elites and safeguarding their privilege as inheritors of wealth and influence. Sworn to secrecy, they often communicated in ciphers. Ooh, spooky stuff. It is! It is freaking spooky! John F. Kennedy came out against secret societies because he knew about this stuff. What happened to him? Naturally, very little is known about this mysterious organization. However, a small volume containing the minutes of their meetings is held in the collections of the Vermont Historical Society. By the mid-19th century, a nativist movement gained popularity in the United States. It promoted the cause of native-born inhabitants. Where have I been hearing talk like that? I'm a heritage Canadian. Are ya? Really? That's an interesting term. Where's that coming from? Let me look a little further south, okay? It was the result of a steady era of industrialization and subsequent waves of immigrants in the 1840s, primarily from Ireland and, Quebec. No wonder they hate us. These immigrants, all you Canadian Canuckistanians coming down here. These immigrants were different from the prevailing culture, and this influx gave rise to anti-Catholic hysteria. An 1835 book of spurious origin called Awful Disclosures purported to reveal scandalous facts about convents and religious orders. Supposedly penned by Maria Monk, a fugitive nun, it became a bestseller and survived several printings to buttress arguments condemning Catholicism. It sold 300,000 copies as the fraudulent Protocols of the Elders of Zion served anti-Semites. I've talked about that book just a little bit. Oh, also, just so you're aware, that has been spun up and repurposed and rebranded by a few of your favorite MAGA-type influencers. Just letting you know. They're just not telling you exactly what it is because that's their modus operandi, their MO. That's the way they operate. They hide it. They change the words, they twist the words, they flip it around, they lie to you in order to give you the drip, drip, drip of indoctrination over time. You're in a cult. No, I'm not. You have TDS. Awful Disclosures fueled anti-Catholic prejudices for decades. It was during this era of uncertainty that the Order of the Star-Spangled Banner was formed. According to John McMaster's History of the United States, its inception was in New York City in 1850 as a secret nativist society. Its principles were anti-Catholic. Why is Trump feuding with the Pope? Why has he gone to war with the Pope? Doesn't make no sense, doesn't it? His purpose was wholly political, and at each succeeding election it strove by the secret, concerted action of its members to secure the election of staunch Protestant and native-born candidates. Only people born here should be allowed to vote or be in office. Only the people born here. You can come and live, but if you ain't born here, oh, by the way, if you're born here, doesn't mean you're a citizen. Unless we say so. Birthright citizenship don't mean nothing. If you're born here, doesn't make you a citizen. What? Okay. John Lund's article, Vermont Nativism and Vermont History, explains the tortured logic underlying this bigotry. The nativists asserted that Catholicism constituted a form of slavery at odds with American conceptions of liberty, since Catholics were obligated to follow authority blindly rather than display the manly independence of Protestants. Manosphere! Oh! For the early Protestant settlers of Vermont, Catholic reliance on priests and the Pope for divine revelation raised the specter of foreign influence. Foreign influence? Aren't we concerned about that today? Maybe just a little. I'm concerned about foreign influence. I'm always concerned about foreign influence, but there's one country in particular that I'm pretty concerned about right now. When Steven Crowder plays a meme version of the Canadian national anthem with the lyrics, "No Canada," yeah, I get a little concerned, especially after years of listening to all these, allies that he has, these friends, fellow influencers who have been calling for the destruction of our country because they think that we're somehow communists. The Catholics' objections to the use of the Protestant Bible in public schools alarmed many Vermonters, as did their intention to develop a separate education system with religiously oriented schools. With the influx of Irish and French-Canadian immigrants in the 1850s, as noted by Lund, thousands of Vermonters joined Know-Nothing councils. That's secret councils. And swore oaths of allegiance to protect the Republic against every form of foreign influence. By some estimates, more than 100 members of the Vermont House represented Know-Nothingism. In 1856, I'll let you in on a little secret. I hope they don't kill me. Such groups exist, even around here, even as we speak. Formed, right around 2020. About 2020, when the pandemic broke out. Some of them had been in existence before that, but they are spreading, and they really took hold at that time. It's true. Unnamed sources, but I have the proof. Oh, I'm worried. But maybe I shouldn't be, because maybe it's already happened. It's over the border, folks. It's already here. And it's spreading. It has been spreading for years now. The message, the narrative, the ideology. We got to get rid of them because you've got so much censorship up there. And then it's not just the censorship, guys. It's also what's even more dangerous than censorship, I think. No, I know. Is a free-for-all where there are no rules at all. And that leaves you vulnerable not just to foreign influence, but all kinds of influence. The important point being all kinds of influence, including malicious social media feeds, psychological propaganda, psychological manipulation. This is the governor of Maryland in another NPR interview. A lot of this stuff just coming out in the last day or two. Very timely. Strange how it all kind of comes together at this time. Very relevant to what we're talking about. He was really being interviewed in response to what he's seeing coming from the White House right now. Big concerns. From Governor Wes Moore, talking about the Iran war and the assault on freedom and democracy because of social media platforms like X, controlled by Musk. It asked what he would do about it.
Congress and the White House, they have to take a leadership role, and they cannot get steamrolled by Silicon Valley and by these tech entrepreneurs who somehow think that they should be able to write all the rules.
Another aspect of power, how do you believe AI will shape future elections starting with this fall's?
Well, I think people need to be, for states, first of all, for elections, it's states that are running this. The federal government does not run elections, and that's one of the reasons why it is so problematic when you're watching what Donald Trump and J.D. Vance are doing to try to manipulate this next election, especially when you consider the fact that states are in control of what happens in elections in their own jurisdictions.
Yeah.
But I think we are going to see how people are going to use AI and manipulative technologies for ads. You're going to see how it's going to be used for introduction of misinformation. You're going to see how, particularly for AI, because remember, this is a learning technology. Agentic AI means it's constantly learning based on information. And you're going to see how they're going to use that to be able to manipulate who can vote, when they vote and how they vote. And so I do think it's important for states to get in the game on this, because election security has got to be our top priority as we're thinking about things going into November.
I'm also just thinking about manipulating the minds of people, influencing people in different ways,
Well,
specializing messages for them. And I would imagine, because it's a competitive game, that if the other guys are doing that, you're going to have to do that.
Yeah, or I think you need to stop everyone from doing it, right? I think you're going to have a bar as to what information is put out there, and frankly, it's, not coming from a political background, you kind of see it, right? You're like, when you're looking at some of the misinformation that people are utilizing and the lies that they will just allow and tolerate, it's staggering. For many people, that's actually become a business model about how to confuse people. So real facts and real data and real information can never make it into them, because it's a lot easier to just introduce lies.
How do you limit that without censorship?
Well, because I think what you have to be able to do is be able to, first of all, you have to be able to be aggressive when it comes to introducing your information and introducing real data and having real platforms for that. But I do think there needs to be standards. And I think that the social media companies have a responsibility on this. I think local media has to have a responsibility on this, that if you are going to allow things that are just blatantly false or blatantly dangerous, that should be a measure of responsibility on you as the carrier or you as the provider to be able to make sure that that is not allowed on your platform.
It appears that...
Okay. This is a big part of what we want to talk about, but I do want to come back just for a moment to what I was commenting on with regard to the World Health Organization, because there's another aspect to the United States pulling out that I think a lot of people haven't really thought about. See, the reason people had to comply with mandates, even though they weren't mandatory, say in Canada, is because if you were told by employers, if you want a job here, you have to get the jabberoonie. And if you don't, no job. If you want to ride on a plane or a train, you have to get the jab. You have to do this. Otherwise, you can't participate fully in society. See, one of the big reasons, the true reason that Trump has pulled out of the World Health Organization is because he doesn't want to be obligated to share any future medications or vaccines at a predetermined price. Because the United States has the most successful, the biggest pharmaceutical companies. During the pandemic, I know that, a lot of people think that these vaccines were like kill shots or whatever you want to say. But on the other side, they were viewed globally as the premium vaccines. They were the most sought after. The United States did take an America First approach, making sure Americans got the vax first, and then they distributed some to the rest of the world for a price. But that's the point right there. They don't want a contract, an overarching, predetermined contract. If there's anything in the future, this, by pulling out of the World Health Organization, they have the technology, this mRNA technology. If there's a virus that is, let's say it's released, okay? You have the big pharma. You have the vaccines that the world wants. China had some. Russia had some. People didn't want those. People wanted the ones from the States. And in the future, because they have the big pharma machinery, they control then the premium product. Everybody's going to want it. See, it's not just about the money either. It's about the power. Just like they told you, you can't get on a plane or a train or an automobile if you don't get the jabberoonie. If you're not obligated under a contract to provide it to anybody, but they want what you have, and it's suddenly in super high demand, limited supply, huge demand, big prices. No predetermined contract price. No, that's like futures. That's a derivative, folks. It's a form of derivative. Betting on the future. Locking in the price now. Trump don't want to do that. He wants the power to determine the price later, with no handcuffs on, no predetermined pricing, unless it's to, on a one-on-one basis with a particular country that maybe he likes. But now he can use that as leverage for trade deals, or maybe even to say, I don't know, take over a country. He can use it for a lot of as a weapon, just like they were using lockdowns, mandates as a weapon against freedom right here in Canada and in the United States. Keeping in mind as well that, yeah, the Freedom Convoy did some great things, but the truckers were there fighting the mandates, wanted the federal government to lift the mandates on the truckers, but in order for them to go back to work, they have to cross the border into the United States, where the U.S. government had mandates like a lock, like on truckers crossing into the U.S. So you couldn't go to the U.S. unless you had the shot. So they were protesting in Ottawa to get a change to legislation that was in the United States. While we were all so emotional, nobody ever connected those two dots. And then everybody gets emotional. Nobody's thinking straight. We're bombarded with all kinds of information. We're told, don't trust the mainstream media. They're lying to you, because they focus in on one or two lies there, and they go, see, you can't trust them, which is true. If somebody lies to you, then how do you trust anything they say? And basically, you're disarmed at that point, and you say to yourself, I can't trust them. Oh, look, over here, squirrel. That I can probably trust that squirrel who's making a funny noise on the internet. Shiny thing. Look at that. Oh my goodness. Oh, this guy's telling me this story. I believe that because those guys over there are liars. I'm not even listening to them anymore. Now you're in an echo chamber and they're telling you anything you want. No, Rick, it's not true. They're all being truthful to us because I'm awake now. I'm awake. No. Nope. You've been lied to, lied to, lied so much that everybody's face is turned blue. How do you know? Well, I'll tell you a personal story, then I'm going to prove it to you. I'm going to prove it, not just through my own personal experience, but just after the convoy in Ottawa broke up. I saw a story online done by the Druthers newspaper, which also had a video channel at the time. And I watched this, and the reporter used a piece of video of one of the protesters being beaten by a cop. And, of course, that was the big photo op that we know that has been really used. But the story was about a veteran who had testified at the Public Order Emergency Commission hearing. And they said that here's video of this. They showed the video. So this is supposed to be the video of this guy being beaten. But I'm looking at it very closely, and I'm looking at I remembered the guy testifying because we covered the inquiry from start to finish. And then I'm looking at that video, and I'm like, that's not the guy. That's not him getting beaten. That's not accurate. So I sent messages out. I called. I tried to get a hold of the people who run the Druthers newspaper. And then I sent a message to the producer. I got a message back by email, but the guy wouldn't do an interview. The paper wouldn't respond. Because what I was seeing, it was true. They were using footage that was not what they said it was. It was inaccurately depicted. It was a distortion. It was a lie. Not to say the guy didn't get beaten. He said he did. I'm inclined to believe it. But the guy in the story that they interviewed, or so he said, testified to that, but they didn't have video of it. And that's kind of weird when you think about it, because there were cameras everywhere, and yet they didn't have video of that. So they used this other guy getting beaten, and they just put it out there as though that was him getting beaten. But it wasn't him getting beaten. That bothers me because I'm a journalist and I'm about truth. So even back then, this goes back years ago, and I was like, why did you do that? All I got back was, well, it was a depiction. Well, then you have to label it as such. It's not even a reenactment. It was like another person being beaten, sort of, and then they said that this is it. It was not true. It was just not true. And they wouldn't come on to talk about it. And I would have been completely fair and even forgiving to some degree. Well, we didn't really have the footage and we needed to do something. And, well, it was a representation. You know, even if you'd put a graphic up there and said, you know, this is just file footage of the convoy and this is somebody else that got beaten. People would have, but no, they didn't do that. They lied. And then when they got caught, I was the one who got attacked. Because people lost their minds, because just as Dragon and I were talking about the other night, you know, you don't want to be, if you're in the cave and you see the shadows and that's not real, but somebody points out to you that that's not really real. The truth is out there. There's a whole world out there. No, kill them. Shooting the messenger because you just can't handle the truth. You don't want to handle the truth because you'd rather hate or blame. And you're so invested in what you think that because you think you're awake, you can't really be woken up. You don't interrupt my dream. I'm awake. Same thing over at InfoWars. Timely as hell. This interview coming out over on Galaxy Brain. Josh Owens, former InfoWar employee. He, over there blowing the whistle, he's written a book about working at InfoWars. Because he feels so guilty about the shit that he did over there. Lying to people, fabricating stories, outright lies. He's ashamed of what he did. And he's searching for some sort of self-accountability. Here's a clip from the interview. You think I'm lying? I'm not lying. No, I'm not. That happened to me. And there's been many other things, too, that have made me question a lot of the things that I believed in and the people that I put trust in. The influencers that I thought were okay have turned out to be untrustworthy. Josh Owens spilling the beans on Alex Jones. And I mean, just watching him after a long time, you begin to realize that this shit is just freaking insane. At a certain point. It's like, okay, this is too much. This is a mind F. Josh Owens talking about working there, making shit up. With one of the guys that went to the J6 riot, Joe Biggs, also mentioned in this, a guy that he worked with at InfoWars for a while. Joe Biggs is a big figure. You go look up the name. I wasn't aware of this. I didn't even know this stuff had happened until just, what was it, yesterday I saw this? Yeah, I think it was yesterday I saw this for the first time, this interview. It's fresh. Josh Owens, right here, talking about making shit up about ISIS. In order to scare the shit out of you.
Banality and the chaos of every day in that office, interchangeable, shifting with it every 30 minutes, every hour. And then you have these big moments of like Jones can craft the world into making it seem like everything has this purpose. I can tell you a story to sort of explain a version of this. So Jones started sending us to the border. And the first trip I went with the reporter Joe Biggs, who a lot of people might know or might not know, but he became a Proud Boy and then he was sentenced to 17 years and then Trump commuted his sentence after January 6th. We were sent on a trip to the border. And the first trip that I write about, there was a Judicial Watch report that said there were these ISIS bases in Juarez. So we got there was nothing to show, and we ended up having him dress as an ISIS terrorist and walk across the border. One side of that story is that that's the dumbest thing ever. The second side is that we lied. We didn't actually cross the border. We were having to fill this void of nothingness to produce these reports for Jones and make things more cinematic. That's why he sent us there. So that's one story. But when we returned, Biggs crossed over and he was trying to find this ISIS base. He found what he believed was a mosque, and then we posted a report that said that he had discovered the ISIS base. And so that previous report that had happened, that report, I'm sitting there going like, we're screaming into the void. This is absurd. It's to the point where it's a joke. Like, what are we talking about? This isn't based on anything. I saw nothing in the video that I was editing and uploading that proved that it was an ISIS base. I mean, there was no, what were we looking for, an ISIS flag? The next day when we were leaving, the FBI contacted us and they wanted to meet with us. And at the time I was certain, like, this has to be illegal. We didn't know for sure that it was a lie, but there was no evidence to prove that what we were saying was true. So I thought that we were sort of, the reckoning was coming and it was well-deserved. And so we met these FBI agents at the airport. They tell us that they're using our video for information. Like, they don't have jurisdiction. They can't go over into Mexico. And they're speaking to us as if we're not idiots, but as if we're journalists. And it was a moment of, what is going on? The FBI is talking to us as if they are gathering information from our videos. To me, this is clearly ridiculous. What am I to believe? Like, is there something actually going on here? Because all we had was a Judicial Watch report. There was no evidence to prove that there was an ISIS base or anything. But Jones and his insistence is that, yes, there is. You are the problem. Jones was not sitting there telling us to lie about things. He was making us question our own minds. After years in that environment, you stop even believing what your mind is, the fire alarms that are going off in your brain saying, like, this is insane, this is crazy, this is wrong. And you think, maybe there's something else that I'm not seeing. Like, maybe I can't trust myself. Maybe eventually there will be a piece of evidence that comes out that proves Jones was right about this thing the whole time.
I want to reiterate, too, on this ISIS example. That's an example that you sort of show throughout the book of Jones sending you guys on this, go find a thing, a specific thing that I want. You guys getting there being like, it doesn't really exist. We have to figure out some way to get him something. And, that incident itself is like, as you describe it, like, despicable, right? Like, dressing up as this ISIS person, you have a fake severed head and an Aladdin-style sword. There's, sort of like a racist depiction to camera, or like, accent of, something about Sharia law that he mentions as he crosses the border to camera. It's obviously a skit, but it's also like very bigoted. It's very, it's gross. How much were you disgusted by what you were doing in the moment versus how much were you like, I can't listen to that?
I don't know if in the moment I was thinking much at all. In the moment, it was, we have to get this thing done. If we don't, it's going to be a problem. I have to go back to the hotel room. I have to stay up all night. I have to edit this report. I have to be up the next morning to appear on Jones's show. Like, it was just constant. We have to fly back. There's going to be another trip immediately. Like, it was the day-to-day that I feel like I was focused on the most. I wasn't even, and that's on me. Like, that's not an excuse. That's 100%. That's on me. I was focused on the exact wrong things. But it wasn't in the moment that I realized, I mean, yes, of course, I know that lying is wrong. I know that those things were wrong. I wasn't saying that, we were somehow proving that ISIS was able to come over and that it was going to manifest, and then we would see that thing that we were filming that we knew was a lie. But I think, in a sense, I don't think I was thinking that much at all in the moment. I think I was in like that funnel, and that cloudy funnel of the chaos of everything, the atmosphere that Jones created. And that was sort of in the moment at least, that's what the focus was. It was, get this thing done, do it the right way. If you don't, Jones is going to make you look like a fool. The people you're surrounded by, you're isolated. It's the only people you spend all the time around. Jones creates this reality in his world. So, I mean, if I'm being honest, I think that is, in the moment, what the focus was so much of the time.
The reason why I'm pushing on this, I think, is because it's helpful to understand for other people. This is less, to try to, make you answer for these things, which you make an attempt to answer for in this book. But it also does seem like when you're writing this, that you are struck with this, and I don't know if this is you thinking about it after the fact, because it seems like there's so much going on inside of your mind in these moments. In that ISIS example, you're unpacking the box, the costume, right? And you get to the severed head, and you say, if there's a hell, I think we're going there, right? There's an acknowledgement in the moment that this is messed up stuff. It seems to me, at least from how you're writing, that there was that too. This notion that this is not good. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's definitely accurate. But I think that's a small piece of a larger puzzle of what's going on in our brains at the time, or at least for me individually. There was an understanding that there were things that we were doing that were wrong 100%. And part of the reason I wrote the book was to acknowledge that, and yet I did nothing. I chose to focus on something else. I chose to turn it back inward and focus on what my days were and what my problems were.
Because it was his job, it was his livelihood, it was his reality. It was everything. He knew no one else would ever hire him. It was the only place he would be able to work because he'd been tainted, contaminated, dirtied up by working over there. And mainstream media outlets, other independent outlets that are ethical and have integrity, won't touch you if you've lied. But he did. I was sometimes faced with similar kinds of challenges working for the mainstream media, insofar as there's nothing to shoot for a story that they assign you to cover. They send you out to a car crash scene, but the car crash scene is already cleaned up. Things like that. So you have to get creative and shoot things in a particular way, in a creative way, to in order to fill with video a report. Because at that time, of course, it wasn't enough to just stand in front of the camera and talk. You needed to show people something, some evidence of whatever it was. But never, ever did I cross the line and lie or fabricate anything that I did that was any kind of even close to a dramatization. I would tell people, this is archive footage, or this is something that, we've clearly sort of shot for creative purposes to illustrate a point. But never cross the line and try to deceive. And that's what they've been doing over there. More so than just to fill the video. A lot of this has been intentional, maybe all of it. And it's so dangerous. Did you hear what he said? The FBI comes to talk to them about the story that they did because they didn't have jurisdiction. They couldn't cross the border into Mexico. They believed the story. Now you have the FBI believing a lie and sending officers out to gather evidence, which isn't evidence because the whole thing was made up from the beginning. And now you have millions of people who have seen the report believing it. You even have the FBI believing it. Now, because the FBI believes it, it takes on a life of its own. It has credibility. Now, if the FBI is asked about it or comments on it in any way, it has a way of just accelerating everything and distorting actual reality. It's very Orwellian. It's actually fabricating a reality that doesn't even exist. Now, you put the power of the government behind something like that. Not to say that the power of the government isn't behind it. But you just unleash a propaganda campaign with government resources, government funding, the ability to create government websites like alien.gov, or whatever. You can make it look like White House documents. There's been a lot of that going on. Individuals, by the way, they have been able to get access to .gov websites, domains, to create websites that look like they're official White House websites. The government has been taking steps to mitigate that, but I don't know what's more dangerous sometimes. Individuals impersonating the government, spreading fake news and information, or the government itself. I don't know what's more dangerous. When I see a complete 180-degree turn from one administration to the next on the guidance being provided to people on health matters, what science, which science are you supposed to trust? You can't trust it at all. Yesterday, I ran that story about ibogaine, the hallucinogenic that Trump seems to be fast-tracking under the advice of Joe Rogan, a medical not expert. I get a little worried, especially when I heard the claims in the White House that this stuff is 80%, 90% effective in preventing people with opioid addictions from relapsing. One treatment, 80% effective. Two treatments, 90% effective. No mention of the side effects, no mention of the risks, which can include and has included heart attacks on test subjects. And I said, I don't know if I'm buying it. Safe and effective and fast track, just like Operation Warp Speed. And then Joe Rogan's buddy, who runs some sort of a alternative pharmaceutical, natural, hallucinogenic drug company thing, is in the White House there too, talking to El Presidente. And boy, I sure feel confident in all that. As long as it's endorsed by Joe Rogan and brought to you by Donald, I don't know how to say acetaminophen Trump, I'm sure it's all going to be fine. But hey, they need to come up here and liberate Canada because we're all a bunch of communists, bunch of lefties. Commies, Carney. Because, you know, we got to join the U.S. They got to take us over and liberate us because, of course, they don't have any of that in the United States. Certainly not in New York City where you have Mamdani as mayor. So you have to take us over because... Oh, that makes sense. No, it doesn't. I don't think it's an excuse. And it ramps right up. And why? Because our prime minister responding to a threat. This is my personal story that I promised to tell you and I almost forgot. When I was like 3, I learned this lesson a long time ago. The hard way, the really hard way. I don't think I've told you this. I had one best friend. Really kind of just one friend. I was 3, right? I was just venturing out into the world. He lived just a few doors down on the same street, way in the past. He was my friend. His name was Joel. He was, I think, a year, maybe 2 years older. A lot bigger than me. He was my friend. We used to play together. But of course, Joel, I don't know what it was with that kid, my best friend. He was a son of a bitch. No wonder I'm so warped. I have such a complex. My best friend used to beat the shit out of me all the time because he was older. Maybe he was developmentally delayed. I don't know, but he used to beat the living crap out of me for no fucking reason. I hated it. My best friend. I thought. He was bigger, older. I still didn't go to school. I think maybe he might have been 4, maybe 5. I'm too young to really remember. I just remember the thumpings he gave me. But there was nobody else to play with. I didn't know any better. I was 3. But after a while, I learned, don't play with that kid anymore. Just leave him alone. Go away. You'll feel better. I hated that kid after a while. I hated my best friend because he was beating the shit out of me. Not exactly sure what the lesson is, other than don't do that. Don't go looking for it. So if you've got a bully who's trying to beat the shit out of you, don't engage. Well, what the hell are we supposed to do? It's intentional. The whole thing is a setup. It's all bullshit. Oh, you take advantages of us. You rip us off. You Canadians, you don't appreciate us enough. You don't appreciate us, Mark. Like a Sith Lord standing up at Davos, Donald Trump sitting there, basically thinly veiled, not veiled at all, really, threats against the Prime Minister in Canada because he didn't like Carney's Davos speech. No, you treat us so unfairly. You're the richest country on the frickin' planet. You've got all the power. And all you do is complain and whine and point the finger at everybody because you're just looking for an excuse to get more. Because you don't want to share. Because you're not a nice guy. You're a dick. I don't want to play with you. You lost me back there, man. You had me. It was like, hey, less regulation, more freedom. Like, I'm with that. But no, man, you've lost me. And all these other dicks around you, not interested. No thanks. Don't want any part of it. Don't want to throw people in jail, deport all these people. Not like that, with no due process. No, because now you're threatening my freedom. And now you're threatening my country. And now you've got all these paid influencers up here. Or maybe people just looking for clicks and getting some help along the way without them even realizing you're doing it. Lying to us. Lying to Canadians. Making us all blame ourselves. Because that's your MO. You're putting us all through a giant mind fuck. And I'm sick of it, man. Because I'm on to you. I got you. I'm hip to your tricks. Gotcha. I understand it now. I'm showing you shadows on the wall, but pointing back there saying, hey, man, that ain't real. Some of you aren't going to like this tonight. You're going to get mad at me. If you aren't already, you're going to say TDS. That's not an argument. That's bullshit. That's an emotional response because you don't have anything intelligent to share. You have no comeback, no valid argument. You're just upset because your reality is being blown up and you don't want to admit that you got duped. That would make you a fucking idiot. You want truth? Just gave it to you. Don't like it? Too fucking bad. Oh, remember? Yeah. Facts don't care about your fucking feelings. Bob Ray's right. Mark Carney was quite respectful. And quite within the rules of engagement. The interesting thing is, as much as the MAGA horde has been unleashed upon Canada and Carney, and I'm not just sitting here carrying water for him, I'm defending my country and truth. But as much as they've been unleashed upon him, and people are right now saying, you shouldn't do that, he might get mad. Yeah, no shit. Let him get mad. Let him show his true fucking colors. I'm sick to death of this guy. There's an editorial comment. Right back at you there, Donnie. Everybody's walking on eggshells because they're afraid the big orange man's going to come and thump us. Yeah, well, I ain't 3 anymore. You don't have the guns. Don't need them. There are other ways. The pen is mightier than the sword, man. I got into this journalism thing when I was a kid. School newspapers, right through. I've always worked in media because I believed in freedom. This is my way of defending it. Last night, talked about Kate Smith. I got into an argument with Croc. AI. How Orwellian was that? Rewriting history. Maybe. Hard for me to know. I just don't know. Because I can't tell what's real anymore. I'm questioning even my own experiences, even from childhood. Not when I was 3. I would have been all of about, 12, I guess, at the time, when Kate Smith was singing at those Philadelphia Flyers games, and I was watching them with my father and the Philadelphia Flyers, the Broad Street Bullies, the team I never liked because they were called the Broad Street Bullies, and they were into fighting, and I thought, you guys are assholes. So I was a Boston Bruins fan. Not like Bobby Orr. Number 4. Defenseman. Defending. But also reshape the game. Change the equation. Reshape the whole game. Because the guy was so fast. He'd skate from one end of the rink to the other and score a goal. He could play offense and defense. That was my kind of player. Still is. But the Broad Street Bullies, yeah, that was quite a series, 74. And they brought out Kate Smith, their secret weapon, to sing God Bless America. Because they just couldn't lose. And I remembered that people used that phrase, it ain't over till the fat lady sings. I could be misremembering, I don't know. But things are so bad now because of all the lying, misinformation, government propaganda, and social media influencers trying to warp my freaking mind. I can't tell if I'm coming going. I don't know if that's AI, if that's real, or what the hell to believe anymore, even all the way back to 1970 freaking 4. Because Grok told me that it wasn't a phrase really directly related to Kate Smith. That it came later, around like 76, and it was all related to a sportscaster writing about a basketball game, and then there was another thing, and blah, 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 blah. And so it was like 76 and to 79, and I'm like, no, man, I remember it in 74 and 76, but it was Kate Smith. Because she was the fat lady. She was fat. Sorry, not politically correct, but true. In fact, she used to go to her dressing room after performances and cry because people would call her the fat lady. You know, in the movie 1984, you go watch it, George Orwell's 1984. They talk about, like they depict lying to people, controlling information, and there's a scene where the main character takes a piece of paper which has a message on it, and he burns it. It's showing you that this information is being destroyed, so that they can reshape it, rephrase it to shape your mind. You're always being spied on, looked on, this dystopian reality in George Orwell's 1984, and I'm afraid that's what's going on. We no longer know our own history. The very people saying they're opposed to people tearing down statues, and they're opposed to us losing our heritage. I don't. As soon as you use that word now, like people freak out because, oh, you're a white supremacist, but you know, whatever, your history. Don't let them rewrite your history. Don't let them take down your monuments. I get it. Like, I don't really want my history rewritten either. But I think I know the people who have been saying that are also out there rewriting our history. You're seeing it in real time with Trump. Banning books, getting rid of certain language, words, like new regulations for schools. You can't teach this, you can't show kids that. This is too woke, we're not going to let you see it. Well, what about this Kate Smith thing? Like, it blew my mind. So I was looking into it today. I'm going to talk to my dad in a minute about this, because we used to watch those hockey games together. And I went online and I checked with is it Gemini? Yeah, Gemini, which is the Google thing, the equivalent of Grok. And I asked Gemini, I said, like, what? Where did the phrase, "It ain't over till the fat lady sings," come from, or whatever? Anyway, it confirmed for me that a lot of people would use that phrase in relation to Kate Smith, singer. God bless America. I'm like, that doesn't make sense, because over when I was talking to Grok last night, Grok also acknowledged that Kate Smith was singing this song and that people use that phrase for her, but then said that the first use of it wasn't until 76. And I said, Grok, I've got you. You just contradicted yourself. Then Grok comes back last night and tells me, I did this on the program, you guys watched it. Said, I just wasn't precise enough. Really? Like, seriously? Okay, maybe. But I swear to God, it was, in my mind, it was happening in 74. See how terrible this is? You can't tell what's real anymore. So I called my dad today and I said, and I talked to him about all of this. I may be wrong, but I don't think I am. But he had a book. He has a book, and he's going to talk to us about that. Let me get the video queued up here and share this with you. See, if you want to know what happened in the past, you go to somebody who was there with you. Now, his memory's not the best on this one either, because I think I've got it here. Here we go. I think it's probably here. Oh my. I have to find it for you. I have inadvertently misplaced it. Oh, here we go. Okay, I'm able to find it now. What folder is it in? I played it earlier. Here we go. See if I can get it open for you properly. Complicated technically because of the way I had to do this today. Try it one more time over here. I think we have it. Here we go. Yep. Just took a little time for the hard drive to spin up. All right, here's my dad. He has a joke for you too, by the way.
Hi.
Hi.
What's happening?
Well, I need you to help me remember something from when I was a kid. So I need to record this and put it on my program if that's okay, because I was talking about, it just came out of the blue. I said on the middle of my show last night, it ain't over till the fat lady sings.
Right.
And so I remember that from Kate Smith singing God Bless America during the Philadelphia Flyers hockey games.
Okay.
Do you remember that?
Well, vaguely.
Yeah.
I remember. Yeah.
And
I've got a.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead, he said.
Anyhow, I've got a little article in here in a book I'm looking at.
Yeah.
About sports and leisure.
Uh-huh.
And there's an article here that says, "Why isn't it over till the fat lady sings?"
Okay, wait a sec. Wait. Don't share that yet. Okay?
Okay.
I'll get you to share that in a moment. First, I want to make sure that my memory is straight as much as I can be, because I got into a debate with a computer last night.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I was having an argument. See, computers today with this artificial intelligence, you can talk to them, just like on Star Trek. And they sort of think in a way. And so you can have debates. You can just ask questions. So I just remembered the 1970s Philadelphia Flyers, watching those games with you. And I remember the Stanley Cup playoffs. I remember when they won the Stanley Cup in 1974, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they played Boston. And I liked the Boston Bruins. I didn't like the Philadelphia Flyers, but they brought out their secret weapon. They brought out Kate Smith, because every time Kate Smith came to sing, instead of the national anthem, she would sing God Bless America. The crowd would go wild. And then, of course, the other team wouldn't stand a chance.
Yeah.
Right? I remember all of that. And so I remember, I'm pretty sure there were sportscasters, too, saying it at the time as we watched it on, I guess it would have been CBC and Hockey Night in Canada, right?
Yeah.
And they would use the phrase, well, it ain't over till the fat lady sings. And you know, the Bruins are doomed now because the Flyers brought out their secret weapon, Kate Smith, and she'd sing, but she'd sing at the beginning of the games, right? which didn't make sense in a way, because to say that, it's her singing at the beginning of the game. Although, on the other hand, you could say it is all over now, even before it gets started, because the fat lady just sang. So the opposing team doesn't stand a chance. If she sings, it's all over now. It's all over for the Bruins. Let the game begin. So there's that. But do you remember that?
Well, vaguely, you know. I can remember the God Bless America stuff, you know. But Kate Smith, I think she used to sing a lot of war songs too.
Yeah, she, I didn't really know very much about her at all, other than she sang that song at the beginning of the hockey game for the Flyers, and would spoil my day because my team would lose. And all right, so, but I got into an argument with the computer because I said that's where most people, that's where the origin of that comes from for most people, is from her. Because not only the hockey games, but also because she had a big career as a singer before that, going all the way back to like the 1930s. And I think she was on a lot of TV shows over the years. Like, I think she was probably on the Ed Sullivan Show and all of those old big time TV shows, right?
I'm sure, yeah.
And so, but this computer, I asked it, where did it come from? And the computer says told me that the first documented media use of it was not until 1976, that phrase. It ain't over till the fat lady sings. And it's all attributed to a sportscaster, Ralph Carpenter. Don't know who the guy is. They say it was with him talking or writing about a basketball game between Texas Tech and Texas A&M or something. And I'm like, I don't know. And then there are other people who think that it's some other sports writer, Dan Cook, also from, but not until 1978, something related to a San Antonio Spurs basketball game. I'm like, no, it was like, I don't think so. So then I asked the computer about Kate Smith, and then the computer comes on and says, oh yes, many people would talk about that, and they would use the phrase related to Kate Smith and the Philadelphia Flyers back to 1974. And then I said to the computer, I was trying to make the computer admit that it was wrong. I said, well, you just told me that people were using the phrase back in 1974, but you're trying to tell me that it wasn't used for the first time until 1976. So, and then the computer is just not going, it won't admit that it's wrong. So the computer saying, well, I just wasn't precise enough. It still is 1976 because that's the first time it was ever used in print. And I'm like, for crying out loud, no. So I needed to phone you and ask you if you remembered people using that phrase back in like when Kate Smith was singing. I think that they were using that phrase. I'm certain they were, even before that, about Kate Smith, because she was the fat lady.
Yeah. Well, this thing I've got here, I'll just listen quick. It's in the 1970s, but no specific date, eh?
Yeah.
The 1970s. I can read you this article if you want. Okay.
Where's it from?
I've got a book here. It's called Now You Know, the Book of Answers, written by Doug Lennox.
Oh, yeah.
Doug, he was nationally syndicated radio show, eh?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. It says here, in the 1970s, Washington sports columnist Dan Cook wrote, "The opera isn't over till the fat lady sings." Later, basketball coach Dick Motta, referring to the Bulls' slim playoff chances, misquoted Cook when he said, "It isn't over till the fat lady sings," and it stuck. The inspiration might have been the old American proverb, church isn't out till the fat lady sings. But regardless, it's now accepted in sports as meaning where there's life, there's hope.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
It
man.
didn't. Yeah.
Well, then why do I recall so vividly people using that phrase when Kate Smith was being used by the Philadelphia Flyers?
Yeah, because she probably was in the 70s, and that's right, because back then she probably sang for the anthem for the Philadelphia Flyers.
She did.
Yeah, that's right.
And so people would, and that they were keeping track. Every time they brought her out to sing, they would win. And very few times did they ever lose when she came out to sing. Like,
Yeah.
And
If I remember right, were they not referred to as the Broad Street Bullies?
yes, that's right.
Yeah.
And they had Bobby Clark and Reg Leach. Bernie Parent was the goalie.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was back when they had enough. They didn't have so many teams. I couldn't name the teams. They still had just few enough teams that I could even remember some of the players. Right now, I can't. I don't even know who all the teams are anymore. I can't follow it. It's too much. I couldn't name you all the teams in the NHL anymore.
Yeah.
Well.
And now they got so many different foreign players playing. You know who the hell they are.
Yeah, you can't pronounce any of the names because I just speak English. So, and
yeah,
I can't. It's just yes, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I don't know, Dad. Like, to me, that's a Kate Smith thing, but always was through my whole life. So I thought that's where it came from. Maybe I was just ahead of the curve. And ahead of everybody else. Maybe I made it up and I didn't even know it, but they didn't publish it, so nobody knew.
No. Yeah.
Or maybe I've just been confused over the years.
Well, I don't know. Maybe you were combobulating.
Maybe I was what?
Combobulating.
That's right. Combobulating.
Combobulating, yeah.
Yes, that's right. I don't know. I thought that I had the computer down cold and dead to rights on this one, but I guess it's in dispute. I swear they were talking about it using that phrase. It ain't over till the fat lady sings. And
they did, and that phrase stuck. You see, even back when Dan Cook first wrote that, he said the opera isn't over till the fat lady sings, and then later, the basketball coach Dick Motta, referring to the Bulls' slim playoff chances, he misquoted Cook and said it isn't over till the fat lady sings.
But see, those quotes didn't come out until a couple of years later, and
okay.
There you go. All right. Well, thanks for telling us the dad joke for the day. People love that stuff, so I appreciate it.
Okay, All
right. Love you. Talk to you later.
Take care, buddy. You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. But this is maybe why I'm misremembering. So I just went to Grok, asked again. See, they kept using the song. She made many appearances, but they also used a recording of Kate Smith at Flyers games for many, many years, right up until 2016. And here it is. I said, so that's why over the years some people would use the phrase, it ain't over till the fat lady sings for Kate Smith. Grok says, yes, that's a big part of the local Philadelphia legend around Kate Smith and the Flyers. Kate Smith was a large, full-figured woman, often described as plus-sized, or the fat lady in that era's blunt terms. and her powerful renditions of God Bless America became an iconic good luck ritual before big Flyers games. The team had a phenomenal record when her recording or live performance was played something like 100 plus wins with very few losses over the years. Flyers fans started associating her appearance with the game being sealed or the momentum shifting decisively in their favor. This led to the playful twist on the idiom, "It ain't over till the fat lady sings," or sometimes jokingly, "It ain't begun till the fat lady sings," since she performed before the game started, not at the end. The saying itself is older and most commonly traced to opera, where a large soprano often performs the final aria, or popularized by sports writer Dan Cook in 1978. I kept saying 76 because I'm even misremembering last night, during an NBA playoff broadcast. But in Philly sports culture, especially during the Broad Street Bullies era, it got strongly linked to Kate Smith. Many locals and Flyers faithful still reference her as the fat lady in that context. It's one of those fun, enduring sports myths that ties her voice, her size, and the team's success together perfectly. Even if it's not the absolute historical origin, it definitely explains why people made that connection for decades. And I still do. But it wasn't, I guess, an entirely accurate remembering. But I wanted to make sure you guys got information that got you as close to the truth as possible, if not the truth. So I hope that helps you. Now, the other thing about Kate Smith, I think I alluded to this in the video with my dad there, the interview. Kate Smith has been canceled because of cancel culture, political correctness back in 2019. Because back in the 30s, she sang another song that said, that's where darkies come from. And very controversial now, used as part of minstrel shows, blackface. Here, I'll get you the lyrics. I don't know if I won't play the song. But this is why I also began to really question whether maybe somehow they had scrubbed this history of Kate Smith from the internet, because back in 2019, the Flyers stopped using her song. I'll bring it up again. Because of her singing this song back in the 1930s, which was a controversial thing at the time. In fact, in front of some places like sports stadiums, Yankee Stadium, Philadelphia Flyers, they've covered up her statue out in front of these buildings. They've stopped even using "God Bless America" because of this song. That's why Darkies were born. 1931, written by Ray Henderson and Lou Brown. Because here are the lyrics, and you'll understand when I read them, I think. Brothers, sisters, when this world began, there was work to be done, and it seemed that someone left it to the colored man. Brothers, sisters, what must be. Though the balance is wrong, still your faith must be strong. Accept your destiny. Brothers, listen to me. Someone had to pick the cotton. Someone had to pick the corn. Someone had to slave and be able to sing. That's why darkies were born. Yeah, that's pretty bad. That's really bad. Someone had to laugh at trouble. Though he was tired and worn, had to be contented with any old thing. That's why darkies were born. Sing, sing, sing when you're weary, and sing when you're blue. Sing, sing, that's why you taught. That's what you taught all the white folks to do. Someone had to fight the old devils. A shout about Gabriel's horn. Someone had to stoke that old train that would bring God's children to green pastures. That's why darkies were born. So the Flyers and Yankees stopped using Kate Smith's God Bless America recording because she sang that back in the 1930s. Some people trying to argue that this song, that's why darkies were born, was a satire or a fatalistic commentary rather than outright endorsement. But yeah, pretty frickin' racist, basically saying the only reason black people were born was to work, to be slaves, to pick the cotton. People tried to defend it. Should Kate Smith have been canceled? Should they have stopped using all of her music? You can decide for yourself. I know that Kate Smith did a lot of great things too. God Bless America, her biggest hit, written by Irving Berlin. And she gave up the copyright to it too, so that the proceeds for quite a number of years went to the Boy Scouts and I think the Girl Scouts too. A lot of money. And it was a gift to America, but now many people won't even play her version of it because of her connection to the other song. Such is the nature of cancel culture. When did that happen? 2019. Who was in power at the time? That's interesting. Was it Trump? I think so. Yeah. Mm-hmm. The United States is a great country. It's a beautiful place, great people, but you've got, like a lot of countries, some problems in the past, and you have some problems today. And you have a wide range of political views. Man, you're as diverse and as progressive and as woke and as messed up and as conservative and as fascist and as communistic as any country in the world. You've got it all, man. I don't know if you've got freedom right now. Doesn't feel like it. It doesn't feel like the America I ever knew. Whatever America that is, because it seems like there are a lot of different versions of it. It's been transformed many times, I guess, over time. And at times it's been better for some people than for others. The struggle continues. I just know that whatever happens, people are going to keep on fighting. And I'd prefer to just not have a war over stuff like, I don't know, whether I'm Catholic or Protestant or Muslim, Christian, Jew. I'd rather be judged on my values and what's in my heart and my head instead of my skin color or my religion or my political ideology even, maybe. I'd rather live in a world where people are judged on the content of their character, not the color of their skin. That's the way I was raised. And I don't like it when my best friend beats the shit out of me. I can still feel it. Maybe because it's still happening. But today, I don't hate my best friend, Joel. And I learned a long time ago that I shouldn't hate anybody, really. I have to find forgiveness in my heart, and maybe sometimes even turn the other cheek. But if somebody keeps beating me in the face, I'll try to walk away. And if I can't, then I'll do whatever I have to do to take care of myself. I hope Canada does that too. I expect whoever is Prime Minister, whether it's Carney or Poilievre or anybody else, to do what needs to be done to protect my country. And I'm not going to join a mob online to do more damage by lying. And helping somebody make an excuse to do more damage. To help somebody come up here and punch me in the face. Or worse. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to do the opposite. Who's with me? Want to come along for the ride? It's going to be an adventure. And I'm not sure what the truth is all the time. Just like I've been saying, many things can be true at the same time because the truth is elusive. I'll never knowing a lie to you, but I don't always know if I'm right. In this case, though, I'm pretty damn sure I'm not wrong. And for now, that's going to have to be enough. That, and just telling our American friends that, hey man, we're still with you. Love you. And no matter what, still love Kate Smith. See you tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern. On the flip side, and God bless America.
And now, it's going to be my great, very great privilege to sing for you a song that's never been sung before by anybody. One that was written especially for me by one of the greatest composers in the music field today. It's something more than a song. I feel it's one of the most beautiful compositions that was ever written. A song that will never die. The author, Mr. Irving Berlin. The title, God Bless America. Ocean, white with foam, God bless America, my home, sweet home. The hill in Virginia, to the gold fields out in
This has been a Maverick multimedia production.